Hello everyone, Seraphin here, welcome back for more Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, the post-game edition, and I welcome you back to the Lagdou Ruins. Today we are tackling floor number 3 of said ruins. I've already gone ahead and pre-organized all of our equipment. We're going to be letting Tana off the chain for a little bit, and by that I mean, of course, putting her on the bench, not the exact opposite of what I just said. We're going to be putting in Calm because there's going to be some treasure chests for us to get into this chapter. And I believe they have some fairly valuable goodies inside, so we'll be getting those. Other than that, the usual team we've been using this whole time, and we're just going to plow right into it. I'll take a look at the map real quick so you guys can see here, though. We start down in the center of this ruinous area down here, I suppose. There's a lot of little side rooms, as well as little passageways. Lots of cracked walls leading into treasure chests. And also Gorgons, my favorite. You guys know I love Gorgons. Yeah, they're going to die very quickly. That being said, there's quite a few enemies on this map, no more than we've already been seeing that, however, so... But there is a fair bit of treasure spread out throughout the entirety of the map. There's about 3 treasure chests. So we're going to have to see if we can get Calm to kind of move around and get as many of those as he can. Probably a lot of ferrying around will be involved. I guess we'll have to wait and see how that goes, but... That being said, we're going to dive right in. Because I don't see any reason not to. Alright, so first things first, we got a fair amount of Gwilgies on this map, along with mostly whites, a few Elder Bales smattered here and there, and of course Gorgons, my favorite. I guess it's just the one Elder Bale, huh? But yeah, Gwilgies are not my favorite things in the world. They're, as you can see, they're quite a lot faster than we've seen them before. 21 speed is certainly nothing to sneeze at. That being said, I don't think they're going to be that big of a deal for us too much. Although, I tell you what, 21 speed means Archer cannot double them at any point. That's unfortunate. I just realized he's almost capped speed, by the way. I hadn't noticed that until just now. Needless to say, we're going to go ahead and get Archer moved in over here. I don't see any reason to purge anything just yet, as much as I would love to purge that Gorgon. I don't think there's any reason to. I am fairly confident that Archer can handle getting attacked over a wall. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to go ahead and shine this guy, and... Oh, man, I can't even... Jeez, I can't one-round him. Oh, never mind, I crit. We're good. Wilgie has been one-rounded. So that's going to be a problem if not even Shine can do it, although his magic isn't capped yet, so... It's almost there. More luck. Alright, you know what? Archer is doing the Lord's work here. Which is convenient because he's a bishop. He could cap resistance if he gets it every single level from now on. It's not very likely to happen, but it could. He'll definitely cap magic and speed, though. As you can see, he's only 1 point off from both of those. I wish his defense were a little higher, but that's what you get for using squishy bishops. We're going to send Natasha off on her own this way, but as you can see, she's turned into quite the monster. Her defense, again, also a little low, but... Considering she's very unlikely to get hit, that's not that big of an issue. I know I've said time and time again through the course of the tower and the ruins here so far, but bishops are your bread and butter. Which is convenient, because those light magic tomes look like bread and butter. It's like a brown book with some yellow on it. I mean, bread and butter, delicious. Anyway, moving on. We're going to park Ewan right here in this doorway to let these guys come at him. Probably should have looked to see what kind of equipment we're dealing with on these guys. I know for a fact, I glanced at this a little while before we started. There's some guys with secret books. Oh, look at that, another secret book. We got one last chapter, and there's another one here. I guess the game is saying that we need more skill. Is this game trying to imply that I'm bad at this game? That's not very nice of it. But yeah, as you can see, there's a whole room full of Gwilgies up here. That'll be fun to deal with. Probably just put Amelia in there, since she can easily tank whatever is in there and hit them back for just as hard. Speaking of Amelia, we're going to send her right up the middle. Let's go ahead and get her some axe experience, because I think she needs that. Nice crit with the hand axe there. Looks a little strange, crit with a hand axe there. Just kind of spin it in your hand a minute. Everyone knows when you spin weapons, they do triple damage. That's how real life works, of course. And it is no different in Fire Emblem, obviously. Why would it be? That'd be ridiculous. We're going to send Garrick over here to support Natasha in case things get a little hairy. And I do want to have La Rochelle on station in case a Gorgon gets a lucky stone off on either Archer or on Tethys here. since she has my Restore Staff. So I'll bring her this way. And Colin will go this way too, since I want him to open that door eventually. And yeah, I'm going to park Ewan in front of this doorway here so that we can deal with these chumps. I don't think he'll have too much trouble doing that. And this guy had the secret book, did he not? I guess we'll find out just momentarily. So, it occurred... Another hand axe crit. Alright. It occurs to me that me just talking over gameplay is probably not all that entertaining. I mean, maybe it is to you guys, but... What? Come on. Really? With all the things she still has to level up, she didn't get anything? Oh well. Secret book, anyway. I wanted to try to come up with something else to talk about while we're playing over gameplay here, and I figured that maybe talking more about this series that I love so much is maybe not a bad idea. Maybe not a bad place to start. I've talked here a lot about just the general aspects of the series and my history with it through this Let's Play and through my Blazing Sword one as well. But for those of you who maybe aren't as acquainted with it as I am, there's a lot to get into. I, for example, have not even played everything there is to play because, well, a lot of the games are still in Japanese. In fact, about half of them are, I think. Well, maybe not half. That's maybe a little bit too high of a number. There are 15 different Fire Emblem games altogether. 2 of them are technically remakes. So, well, 3 of them actually are remakes. So if you really think about it, there's only 12. However, the 15th one has 3 different versions, which I guess are all the same game, just different storylines, question mark. Do those count as different ones? They do and they don't, I think. We're talking about Fates, of course. Fates being not the most recent release, but near the most recent. It came out in, what, 2014, I think? I want to say. 2014 or 15. Anyway, so Fates is one that I'm not fond of. You probably heard me talk about it a little bit. But Fates has 3 different versions. It's like Pokemon, right? Like there's a red, blue, and yellow version, or a gold, silver, and crystal. Fates had Birthright, Conquest, and Revelation. And all 3 of them involved more or less the same set of characters, just like a Pokemon game. But there's version exclusives, just like a Pokemon game. So the Birthright game, which is largely considered to be the easiest and also, in my opinion, the worst one. It's also the only one I've beaten, by the way. But that being said, Birthright is you focusing on the storyline from a perspective of the country of Hoshido, which is like a feudal Japan-esque country. And you might be thinking, well, that sounds awesome. And in concept, it is. I really liked the idea of a feudal Japan-style Fire Emblem game because most of these, as you can see from the aesthetics so far, are more like European-style medieval fantasy sort of deal. We didn't really get much into like feudal Japan kind of situation, and I thought that would have been a nice break from the series. And in fact, when I was looking at promotional material for it before it came out, I was really excited. Come to find out, however, it very much underperformed my expectations. Is that fair to say, I guess? It wasn't what I was expecting, and it ended up being worse than I expected, and that's really unfortunate because it has a lot of potential, but it wasn't executed very well. What they did with Fates was they made a lot of very radical changes to the formula of how the game works, and in my opinion, it was not always for the better. So one of the big examples is the weapon triangle still there, obviously. They're not getting rid of that. That's probably the biggest thing that's been introduced to this game since it came out with number 4. But what they did was, you understand that there's a concept of weapon durability in this game, as well as things like, oh, certain weapons are too big for you to wield, so they slow you down, that kind of a deal. Well, they didn't really do any of that in Fates. In fact, every weapon, with the exception of healing staves for some reason, have infinite durability. So you could wield the best weapon in the game indefinitely with no drawbacks if you unlocked it for certain characters. And that really put a bad taste in my mouth, if I'm being totally honest. I didn't think it made a lot of sense for you to be able to use the best weapons possible with no drawbacks indefinitely. And some of you may suggest that if you've played through if you've played through Radiant Dawn, the fact that the last few chapters of that game, you effectively have infinite uses on certain weapons. And that's true, but it's only for the last couple chapters. And honestly, you really need the best of the best you can get for those last few chapters of that game. It's kind of brutal. And if I ever decide to play through Radiant Dawn, which I probably will, it's my favorite one, you'll get a chance to see what I'm talking about with regards to that. But the fact that every weapon in Fates has infinite durability was just... It really ruined a lot of the aspect of the challenge from the game for me. Which, if you're playing through Fire Emblem, a lot of the aspect of it being enjoyable, at least in my opinion, is the difficulty. I know I'm only playing through like normal difficulty right now, but I mean, in my off time, I do enjoy playing the harder modes. I enjoy doing like challenges. Nothing like, you know, a 0% growths run like some crazy people do. Or like, you know, any like off-the-wall crazy challenges like that. But I enjoy harder difficulties. I enjoy trying to get everything done that I can possibly get. I enjoy doing deathless runs, which is my preferred method, honestly. I don't like letting anybody die if I can help it. Rip in peace, Kyle. But, you know, it's meant to be a challenging game. Not this one's a bad example. Sacred Stones is actually quite easy by comparison. In fact, it's regarded as probably the easiest one in the series. And the reason for the difficulty being not what it is because you have the opportunity to do things like the ruins in the tower and get as much experience and treasure as you want. There's no limit, per se. Oh, please don't turn me to stone. Okay, cool. 40% chance. Oh, she's got weapon triangle advantage, that's why. Okay. I was wondering about that. I'm like, why in the heck is 40%? That shouldn't be that high. But at any rate, Sacred Stones and Fate's Birthright both have that aspect of you have the ability to get unlimited experience. Fate's Birthright has you don't have to immediately go from one chapter to the next. You can kind of take your time and go to different places and grind and get extra gear and that kind of a situation. So it's very similar to what you're seeing with this game. We don't need to jump from one mission to the next immediately unless in very rare circumstances. We can kind of take our time, you know, go to the tower, grind some extra experience, or we could instead, you know, jump right into the next chapter. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. There's only a couple of circumstances in the series where you're allowed to do that. And this is being probably the best known example, I think, of that. But Fate's Birthright has that same ability. You can choose to go to like training maps, revisit old maps you've already done, and get some extra XP. You can go to paralog missions and get some side story stuff going on. You can there's all sorts of stuff to do in Fate's Birthright, which just you have the ability to infinitely grind. It's not a challenge. On top of that, in Birthright, you get perhaps one of the most broken characters in Fire Emblem history, that being Ryoma, or as he's affectionately known in the community, Lobster King, because of all of his armor. Needless to say, he is the crown prince of the country of Hoshido, therefore he's a noble, and he has a unique weapon that only he can wield, and it's overpowered as heck. It's a lightning-based katana that can attack from distance, and it gives him extra strength just while he's carrying it. Not wielding it, just carrying it, which is utterly ridiculous. And the mirror equivalent of him, that being Crown Prince Xander of Nor, has something very similar. He has a sword that can also attack from distance, and also gives him +4 defense while he's just carrying it. And as you might imagine, they all have infinite uses. So it's really kind of ridiculous what they did with Fates, and I'm not going to say that there's a bad story underneath it. At least, well, Birthright's got a bad story, but Conquest is actually quite good. Conquest is the more traditional Fire Emblem title, in that it does have a more linear story progression, and like you don't have the opportunity to go between story chapters and grind. You're stuck with whatever you can get from playing through the story. Just like we did with Blazing Sword, we had side quests, but we didn't have the ability to pause our story progression and go back and get more stuff or more experience. So that's how Conquest plays out. And that's the more traditional model. That's how most Fire Emblem games are. So if you wanted to get a feel for what the series is like in general as a whole, Blazing Sword and Fate's Conquest is more of the traditional model. That's exactly how Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn are. Those are my favorite ones. That's how Genealogy of the Holy War and Thracia 776 are. Those are the fourth and fifth ones in Japan, respectively. Yeah, that's how Binding Blade is. That's number 6, which is which Blazing Sword is a prequel of. And that's really how the first ones were. That's how 1, 2, or not 2. That's how 1 and 3 were. What is it? Dark Dragon and Blade of Light, and then Mystery of the Emblem. Echoes is the second one, or not Echoes, but Gaiden was the second one ever released. And that one breaks the mold a little bit. Not drastically so, but there's a lot of differences in that game when compared to a lot of other mainstream titles. And then they remade Gaiden in the form of Echoes, which is the quote-unquote 15th one that came out. And that's actually quite good. I like that quite a bit. And they were very, very, very true to the original content with regards to Echoes. Gaiden is not regarded as being a fantastic title by any chance, but it was quite enjoyable. At least the remake of it was quite enjoyable. So I know I'm going all over the place here with my commentary, but if you really want a hallmark of the series that is representative of what the majority of it is like, your best bet, if you want something newer to play, rather than going back and playing the old stuff. Oh, criminy, call him seriously. Of course, he's the only one getting hit. If you wanted something more representative of the series as a whole, I think one of the best places to start is with Blazing Sword, if I'm being totally honest. That's where a lot of American players got their start, because it was the first one we got in this country. It was the 7th one in Japan, but it's the first one we got. But it is very much a very good representation of what the series is like as a whole. It's also a very good game. I like it quite a bit. It's one of my favorites. It's probably in my top 3, if I'm being totally honest. Another really great example of that classic formula is Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, which were the 9th and 10th games in the series in this country. Well, in Japan, actually. But in our case, it was like the 4th and 5th ones. Or like the 3rd and 4th. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, they are also quite good, and those are actually, especially Radiant Dawn, are very challenging. So if you want a real, you know, not so much rough and tumble, but a difficult but enjoyable experience in the classic Fire Emblem style, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn are probably your best bets. Radiant Dawn is especially hard during the beginning areas of the game. It gets progressively easier as you go on, just because you have access to more powerful things. Like any game, really, honestly. But at the same time, there's a lot going for you in Radiant Dawn once you get to the later sections of it. You get some really overpowered weapons and some really ridiculously strong skills, and there's a lot of really good units in Radiant Dawn, too. A lot of crap ones, too, unfortunately. But there's a lot going for those games. That's why they're my favorite. I think they're challenging enough that even a veteran player would have difficulty with them, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with having extra difficulty. But they're accessible enough that people who may be a little new to the series won't be impossible for them to beat it. They may need to adapt and learn some new strategies and understand some new mechanics. Look at that, that's pretty good. But other than that, they're very accessible, and that's what I like so much about them. We're going to go ahead and have... I'll have Archer kill that sniper behind us here. So I think what's going to happen is... I've been mulling it over quite a bit, and I haven't decided yet. So I guess I'll leave it up to you guys, those of you who watch my content here. After Sacred Stones is done here, once we're done with the Lagdou Ruins, we're going to be finished with this for good. And we're going to move on to something else. And I haven't quite decided yet. What I'm leaning toward right now is going into Path of Radiance. And that's going to be interesting. That is a GameCube title. I have the emulation in the works for it, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. But that's going to be a long one. There's some very long chapters to that game. And it's a long story. I think they're all told there's like 20... Oh, don't quote me on this. There's like... I want to say there's 30 chapters in it. So it'll be Blazing Sword length, if not longer, depending on how long some of the chapters go. But it's going to be interesting. And again, that's one of my favorite ones. So that'll be enjoyable, I think. The alternative to that is we go into something that's not Fire Emblem and kind of take a break from this series. And I know that's been kind of my staple so far going forward. Did he just open that chest for me? Or that door for me, rather? That's awfully nice of him. He did release all those Gwilgies, however. That's not good. We're going to need to contend with that. First things first, though, I want that Gorgon dead. Last thing I need is someone getting turned to stone dealing with a bunch of Gwilgies. So we will take care of that problem. Be gone, sir. Madam, whatever. Creepy demon monster thing. Anyway. Yeah, we're going to get Amelia up there since I think she'll be alright at dealing with this. But yeah, it's either going to be we're moving on and doing some more Fire Emblem stuff, or we're going to do a different game series that is just as near and dear to my heart as Fire Emblem almost, in that it was my first tactics game I ever played, and that was Shining Force for the Sega Genesis. And I do have a remastered version of that I can play as well. It'll probably be Shining Force 2, if I'm being honest, because I never really got into the first one. I played it, that was my first exposure to the series, but based on having played through both of them, 2 is by far the superior one. So if we were going to do that, it would be Shining Force 2, and I haven't decided if it's going to be next or not. But we'll have to wait and see. It'll be one of the two. It'll either be Path of Radiance or it will be Shining Force 2. So look forward to that. If you're not interested in either of those, well, I guess you can take a break and watch the other series that I have going on the channel right now, which at this point in time is going to be Pokemon. For those of you who may not be into Pokemon, I'm sorry, but we're going to be stuck with that for a while. That's a long one, so I haven't decided yet what to do after Pokemon. We'll see. We got plenty of time. Don't worry. It's going to be a while. I think I just made it into Goldenrod City, I think, in that one. So, yeah, lots of time. Needless to say, I wish I had the ability to have more than a couple of series running at once, but quite frankly, I just don't have the time between real-life stuff and full-time job, and, you know, it's an interesting story. I don't do this YouTube thing for a living. It's not my full-time job. As cool as that would be, I'm not in any position to do that, so apologies if that's what you were looking for. I do what I can, and I know I've said before I don't put a tremendous amount of effort into producing or editing my content, and that's largely true, but I try to make it good enough, I guess. I know that sounds really complacent of me, but maybe in the future when I have some extra time and some extra resources, I'll be able to improve the quality of things. Ow. I really hope he doesn't get hit by... Well, I guess if he can take a hit from both of them and be fine, but as long as that white doesn't also hit him. Okay, cool, he dodged that one. We're good. Yeah, Gwilgies, as you can imagine, are not fun. They are probably the single greatest bane of Bishop existence when playing through the tower and the ruins and whatnot, because they're fast enough that they generally don't get doubled. And they are very accurate with their weapons, and they have just enough punch to deal a really sizable hit to your otherwise frail spellcaster people. So it's definitely something to be careful of. Why didn't I finish breaking down this wall? That was silly of me. Alright, so most of the crisis here, I believe, has been averted, but let's go ahead and... Can Calm deal with this guy? Not even remotely. So we're just going to send Archer up there, I think. Seems like the best bet. See, even the nice thing now is he's shining and killing things in a single hit rather than having to use 2 lightning tomes. I think he's capped magic, hasn't he? I haven't bothered to look yet. He's got magic and speed. There we go. Look at that. 9 defense. Not too bad at all compared to where he started, so I'm okay with that. La Rochelle, as long as she gets that last point of magic on her level up, she'll cap that. That'll be cool. We got an almost completely capped Valkyrie here. Amelia, unfortunately, is looking like she's not going to cap anything else. I guess speed. She'll cap speed. As long as she gets luck every level, she'll cap that too. But other than that, anyway, moving on. We're going to get Call moved in there and grab that treasure real quick. So I was talking about Fates, and I realized I didn't quite finish my thought process. There's a lot of good things going for Fates, but there's just as many things that annoy the crap out of me, and I've already explained most of them. The infant weapon durability, and the fact that they mess with a lot of classic tropes, and and here's the fun thing about Fates. I say fun, it's not fun at all. The really glaring problem that I had with Fates is the really just bad writing. And I know it sounds like a cop-out, because it's like, why would I complain about the writing of all things? But the problem is, what they did with Fates was something different that they had never done before, and that is they hired a manga writer to do the story, which you might be thinking, oh, that sounds cool, and it does sound neat in concept, but it really didn't work for Fire Emblem, and I say that with as much respect as possible, because I know that they probably put a lot of effort and time into it, but it's not written like a classic Fire Emblem story, and it's very evident that it's not. And there's a lot of very... Oh, come on, really, Garrick? There's a lot of story points that really bug me, not just from a player perspective, but from the fact that they just don't make a lot of sense. And I'm not going to spoil anything here, but if you play through Birthright, there's a couple very glaring points that stick out that are like, are you kidding me? Did they really just do that? Like, why? That makes no sense. There's a couple in Conquest, too, honestly. I'm not even finished with that game yet, and there's a lot of plot points that just bug the heck out of me, but overall, that story just has a lot of problems, and it's really bothersome. It seriously does interfere with my enjoyment of the game. That's very disappointing, because by all accounts, it should be a lot more enjoyable than it is. But that gets in the way, and it sucks that it has to do that, but it's just unavoidable. Man, she is critting a lot. I'm okay with it. Definitely okay with it. More reinforcements, huh? Alright, well, let's take out this... This is the last Gorgon, right? Yeah, no more Gorgons after this. We'll take care of this one. Thank the Lord. I'm not a fan of Gorgons, as we mentioned previously, about 1,000 different times. The fact that Natasha is completely immune to being stoned is pretty awesome. She's fast enough and has so much resistance, it just can't touch her. The whole having light magic is definitely useful for that regard, too. Did her magic stop growing? Oh, jeez. Alright, so she's capped speed and luck already, and she will cap resistance as long as she gets the last 2 points of it there. I think her magic caps at 25, though, so I don't know that she'll be able to cap that. But she's awfully close. That's the important thing. But capping speed and luck, definitely a big deal. I told you she was the best bishop, and I was not lying about that. Is anybody hurt? I don't think anyone's really been getting hit a whole lot this game, have they? I'm not going to complain about that. There's probably nothing to steal from any of these guys. There generally isn't. Based on my experience playing through this, there's not a whole lot of things for you to steal, or... Usually the guys that have extra stuff will just drop it when they die. There's a couple of examples, I guess, where you could steal stuff, but it's not right this minute. We only got a couple more... Well, there's a whole room full of Gwilgies to deal with, actually. Who am I kidding? We'll have Colm crack this chest open. Oh, a red gem. That's cool, I guess. Let's get him out of there. Not through that wall, unfortunately, but... I guess Archer could do with the heal. He got whacked in the face pretty hard by that Gwilgie a while ago, so... I'll heal him up with La Rochelle, I suppose. But yeah, this... Unfortunately, and I realize I'm not being a very good spokesman, but... Play through Fates if you want. It's not that it's unenjoyable completely, but it's got a lot of flaws for someone who is a veteran of the series, and that's just my perspective on it. So take it with a grain of salt. It's just my opinion, but I know for a fact there are a lot of seasoned players that share this opinion, and I'm not saying that makes it more valid or anything, but I'm not alone. Let's put it that way. I'm not alone in this particular regard, so do with that information as you will. Or don't do anything with it if you don't want to. It's entirely up to you. But I will say, don't play through Revelations first if you're going to play Fates at all. Like I said, there's 3 different versions of it. Birthright focuses on Hoshido, and Conquest focuses on Nor. So it's literally you choosing sides in a war. By the way, your player character is the main character in Fates, which is also a first for the series. So you decide which country to fight for throughout the primary focus of the game, and you're generally opposing the other one for most of the story. So you choose which one you want. For Birthrights, it's Hoshido. For Conquest, it's Nor. For Revelations, you don't choose a side. You're just like, forget you guys, I'm going to go find a way to resolve this conflict on my own without battling each other. Which is interesting, I guess. I haven't played through Revelation yet, but I'm told it's a mixture of the two in terms of the mechanics. But at the same time, I'm like, wait, what? How does that work? I don't know. Again, I haven't played through it yet. But that being said, there's a lot of story development that happens in that one that you don't get in the other two. A lot of understanding that happens, a lot of exposition. So if you don't want that ruined for you right away, play through Birthright or Conquest first, then do Revelation, is my advice to you. If you don't want to take that advice, you're certainly not obligated to, so do what you want. Let's knock this wall down. I'll just deal with these guys real quick. I gotta get calm down here quicker, though. I'm not going very fast, and that's my own fault, I suppose. Garrett can handle those guys, no problem. He's beefy enough. Alright, let's get Calm moved out here. I'm just going to pick him up with La Rochelle and move him. I don't have anybody to open this door, actually, I just realized, so that might have been silly of me, but I can just bust the door down. It's not a big deal. I already busted it down over here, so let's just do that. Let's just bust in over this way, rather than wasting my time opening doors and stuff. Yeah, Garrick's got this. He might not be fast enough to double them, but he'll at least take their hits and beat the crap out of them in return. That's capped speed for him, I believe, and he's 1 point off capping skill. That's going to be B rank in Axis for him, I believe. Maybe even A, I'm not sure. I'll have to look. Sadly, you cannot reach S rank in more than one weapons class in the GBA games. There is a couple of exceptions to this, but it's story and plot driven and not gameplay driven, so they're just exceptions to that rule. For example, when I played through Blazing Sword, Athos that we got at the very last chapter had S rank in every kind of magic. That is very atypical. There's not even really any class that can use more than one kind of magic, let alone reach S rank in multiple. So, yeah, that's very atypical. You know, when we fought Leon earlier on the river, he had S rank in both dark magic and staves, even though he didn't have a staff. But he's another exception to that rule. There's a couple of boss characters that do, I guess. But needless to say, for the primary point, you're not going to get S rank in more than one weapon type. And that stays that way for most of the series. I don't think you can reach S... Well, you don't really get S rank outside of the GBA games and Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. After that, they did away with that. The highest rank you could get was A, and you could have A in multiple weapon classes. But for the effects of, like, unique weapons, there were limitations on who could use them, as opposed to your skill not being good enough or that kind of a deal. Does this boss move? I imagine he doesn't, because he would have attacked down there at the, toward the door if he was going to. But that's alright. We'll just take care of this guy real quick. Archer's getting hit again a bunch, and I'm not sure why that is. Probably because his luck isn't anywhere near as good as Natasha's. It is what it is, I suppose. He's getting quite a bit of luck, and I'm very proud of him for that, because that's normally a point of contention for Archer. It's still not anywhere near what Natasha's was, but... Or is, rather, not was. She's not dead. Let's get Calm moved over here real quick. I could have put him down just there. I didn't think of that. No, there's no way in heck she's big enough to carry her to pick him up and put him down. We'll bust down this door. Wall, I should say. It's not even really a door, is it? Alright, we'll move in here with my team of dudes. I don't think there's much more in the way of reinforcements, but we'll have to wait and see. They've been coming out of that top path up there where Archer is for a little while, but might be the end of them there. Alright, so I talked a lot about Fates and how I'm hit or miss on that one. Another more recent example of Fire Emblem, and I think this is actually a much better example in my opinion, is Awakening. So, Awakening came out, what was it, 2012, I want to say? So a little while ago. But Awakening is kind of what revitalized the series from where it was. Fire Emblem was never really that big of a seller in America, or in the West in general. I mean, it's always been fairly big in Japan, but it was never a huge deal here in the States. I mean, it sold decently well, I suppose, but it was never like, you know, it was never a money maker for Nintendo in America. Even when it first came out, it was pretty great, but then it just kind of petered off a little bit. That being said, Awakening was supposed to be like the swan song for Fire Emblem in America, because they were going to be done making it if Awakening didn't do well. Because I guess their sales numbers had just been dipping that much. They're like, okay, this isn't worth it anymore. We need to be done doing this. So Awakening was going to be the last Fire Emblem game, believe it or not. So what happened was the developers were encouraged to just dump everything they could into it, make it as rich and beautiful and great as possible, because it was going to be the magnum opus. It was going to be the swan song. It was going to be the last hurrah for the series, so to speak. So they wanted to make it as good as they could. And they definitely delivered on that in certain ways. Maybe not quite so much in others, but Awakening is quite good. I like Awakening quite a bit. It has all of the same traditional aspects of Fire Emblem that you could possibly want. It did introduce a lot of new things, though. I think Awakening was the first game to introduce a casual mode, in that you have the option to disable permanent death, which for a lot of veterans like myself was kind of a big taboo, because it's like, wait, what? That's been the staple of the series since it came out. Why would you do away with that? But at any rate, they did include that. It's optional. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, so that's the nice aspect of it. Okay, that longbow is annoying. Let's get rid of him. But in addition to that, they had the whole pairing off of characters and introducing their children as playable characters, like they did with Genealogy of the Holy War, which hadn't been done for quite some time. That was the first use of that mechanic in a very, very long time. But it certainly added quite a bit to it, I think. That was a very interesting mechanic, and I like utilizing that quite a bit. No, not staff. Rescue. Thank you. We just need to get Calm into that last chest, and we'll be done with this floor. I'm just going to drop him right there. And we got to contend with this boss character, I suppose, but he's not going to be that big of a deal. I'll just put Amelia out here for the sake of making sure nothing gets in there. We cracked that one already. We just got to... Yep, just that one. We're good. Then we're good. And how far can I dance for... Let me guess, he's one away. Yep, that's actually fine, because I have just enough dancing potential to get him there. Crack that open. 3,000 gold. Alright, I'll take it. And let's dispatch with this silly sod of a guy here. And we'll have Garrick do it. Well, as long as he doesn't hit me, he'll die in one hit. I could just Alhuma him and kill him in one single blow. Yeah, whatever. Bye. It's been fun. Alright, so that is floor 3 of the Lagdou ruins taken care of. Without too much trouble, thankfully. We'll beat a blue gem for our efforts. Nice. And we will proceed on to floor number 4 in the next episode. Do we get anything for floor number 3? No, we do not. Alright, so we'll move on to floor number 4 in the next episode. I'm going to go ahead and get my characters and equipment all taken care of beforehand, so we don't have to sit through that. And I will join you guys next time. So thank you very much for joining me up to this point. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, this has been Seraphin. Stay classy, internets.